So we're pretty far from everywhere, Jeff.
Yeah, that we are. We're hiking up East Mountain in Vermont's Northeast Kingdom. We're just about 25 miles as the crow flies from the Canadian border. Or maybe I should say, as the UFO flies.
Oh, are we chasing a UFO story this week?
We are, but there's so much more to see up here.
Oh, yeah, there is. I see some huge structures up near the top.
Yeah, that's where we're heading.
They're like giant round metal silos. And I see the remains of some buildings over on that side of the road. This looks pretty huge.
Ray, these are the remains of the North Concord Air Force Station. It's a Cold War era military base with a connection to New England's most famous UFO incident. Hey, I'm Jeff Belanger.
And I'm Ray Auger. Welcome to episode 286 of the New England Legends podcast. Thanks for joining us on our mission to chronicle every legend in New England, one story at a time. We can't do it without you.
No, we can't. We're a community of legend seekers always on the hunt for tales of ghosts, monsters, UFOs, true crime, roadside oddities, and all the other weirdness that makes New England special. We're closing in on 5 million downloads of our podcast since we started. So thanks for being there. Great things happen when you share our podcast with your friends. We grow when people share these local stories.
Now, before we go looking for UFOs and an old military base, we want to take just a minute to tell you about our sponsor, Nuati Herbals.
Ray, it's winter.
It is.
And for me, that means seriously dry skin. It's awful. I need to take way better care of my skin in the winter than I do in all the other seasons.
Well, lucky for you, our friends at Nuati Herbals offer healthy skin bath salts. You mix these bath salts into your tub, and they help soothe and moisturize your dry skin. Then you can use the leftover herbs in a linen bath bag to exfoliate your skin.
And when I'm done with the tub or even in the shower, Nuati Herbals also offers 4 moisturizing bath and body oils to help heal and replenish my skin. Ray, did you know your skin is the largest organ on the body?
I did.
Take good care of it, and by the spring, you'll be glowing, healthy, and looking like the best version of yourself.
Let Nuati Herbals help support your healthy lifestyle. Whether you're looking for great teas or health and beauty products, check out the Nuati Herbals website to see all of their great products. And you get 20% off your order when you use the promo code LEGENDS20 at checkout. Visit NuatiHerbals.com. That's Nuwati, herbals with an S.com.
Okay, Ray, are you ready to explore some Cold War ruins?
I am. And this place is really spooky.
Yeah, it is for sure. I mean, these are giant, old, rusting metal silos and structures that were once a radar installation. At its peak, this base held about 175 people.
Oh, like we said, this place is huge. Okay, here's a little more information on where we're at. East Mountain is 3,439 feet tall and is remote. The North Concord Air Force Station opened in 1955. It took 2 years to build at a cost of $21 million. The base was meant to serve as an early warning radar station should the Soviet Union try and launch a nuclear attack.
Think about that. If this station picked up signals of a missile attack, it meant the missiles were already launched from the Soviet Union. It would take those missiles about 30 minutes to get here. So if you're sitting at the controls doing your job and you see the nukes, you have maybe 20 minutes to get the word to the president, and the president can then launch a counterattack.
All within about 20 minutes.
That's right. And if those nukes were launched offshore from a submarine, you're looking more at like 10 to 15 minutes to respond, depending on the target. The counterattack, of course, would pretty much end the world because they blow us up, we blow them up, the nuclear fallout poisons just about everywhere else.
Mutual assured destruction is what kept us safe, I suppose.
Right. So the only job here is to maintain the equipment and facility and watch the radar 24/7.
Now, I have to think that in the dead of winter, this is a pretty miserable place.
Oh, it must have been. Bitterly cold, epic snowstorms. It's all here. But the job must go on no matter what.
I bet those soldiers stationed here had a lot of time to watch the skies as well.
Yeah, I'm sure, right? So they saw comets and meteorites and airplanes and anything else that flew over this remote part of the United States.
And not everything that flew over could be identified, which is why we're here.
Exactly. So let's head back to September of 1961 and find out what happened.
It's Tuesday, September 19th, 1961, here at the North Concord Air Force Station atop East Mountain in Vermont. John F. Kennedy is in the White House. The song Take Good Care of My Baby by Bobby V is #1 on the record charts. The weather today has been pleasant. Temps today reaching about 73 degrees, no rain at all, barely any wind, and visibility is about 8 miles. As night falls, the temperature drops, which is pretty typical for this time of the year. After all, the first day of autumn is just a couple days away.
Life here at the radar station is as lively as it can be. In addition to these huge radar silos, there's living quarters a short ways down the mountain. The administration site has a mess hall, a store, a barbershop, a theater, and even a bowling alley.
These guys have to keep themselves occupied when they're living and working up here. Like we said, the only job is to make sure the facility is well maintained so a couple of people can watch the radar screen all day and night.
It's still early evening when suddenly something is spotted.
Oh man, is it the nukes from the Soviet Union?
I don't think so. I mean, look, it's just one dot on the radar. I'd imagine they'd be more concerned about many dots coming from the north or the east. Plus, look at that.
Oh yeah, this dot doesn't seem to be moving much at all. It's just sitting there.
Right. I mean, a missile wouldn't do that.
Well, it could be some kind of a glitch.
Maybe. Out of an abundance of caution, the soldiers on duty alert the chain of command.
And now some of the men on duty are heading outside with binoculars.
Do you see anything?
I see some strange lights over that way to our southeast, but maybe that could be a plane.
Yeah, I see it too, but it's pretty far away.
But if it was a jet or some other kind of plane, you'd expect to see it continue moving on a straight path. Those lights look like they're just sitting there.
Maybe it's our angle, right? I mean, if it was heading directly toward us or away from us, it could appear stationary.
Yeah, that's true.
18 minutes. 18 minutes go by before these mysterious lights simply vanish. Unsure of what else to do, the soldiers on duty go back to their radar screens and watch for missiles. The event is logged, and life at this remote Vermont base goes on.
What else can you do, right?
Right. But this isn't the end of the UFO story. In fact, it's just getting warmed up right across the border in New Hampshire. And that brings us back to today.
Okay, wait a minute. Something's clicking now. New England's most famous UFO case? Was this a precursor to Betty and Barney Hill's UFO abduction?
Yes, it was.
Oh.
So shortly after this sighting near East Mountain, Vermont, about 10:30 at night and just 20 miles away to the southeast in Lancaster, New Hampshire, Betty and Barney Hill first spotted a strange craft in the sky while driving home to Portsmouth. In the car with them is their dog, Delcy.
Yeah, we covered this story way back in episode 5 of our podcast. You can go back and listen to the whole episode in our archives if you'd like. But we thought it would be good to share a clip of the sighting. So without any further ado, we'll pick up from Betty and Barney Hill's experience.
On September 19th, they were heading back home from a vacation to Niagara Falls and Montreal. Around 10:30 p.m., Betty sees this strange light in the sky and asks her husband to stop the car so they can get a better look and also to let their dog out and walk for a minute.
Good dog, Delcy.
Betty pulls out a pair of binoculars and observes what she describes as an odd-shaped craft with flashing multicolored lights. Barney also took a look, but he figured they were just seeing a jet heading toward Montreal. But then the lights turned and started to descend toward them. That's when he changed his mind.
So the Hills jump back in their car and head towards Franconia Notch, which is a pretty narrow road in the White Mountains. The Hills say they watched this craft descend lower and lower until it passed over a restaurant and signal tower on top of Cannon Mountain until it came out near the Old Man on the Mountain cliff face. Betty estimated that the rotating craft was bigger than the cliff profile, which was about 40 feet.
About a mile south of Indian Head, the Hills say this craft quickly descends toward their car, forcing Barney to lock up the brakes and stop in the middle of the highway. There's no other cars around. And this craft is now less than 100 feet above their automobile. Barney has a pistol in his pocket, so he steps out of the car. He uses the binoculars to look up, and there he says he spotted several humanoid-looking figures gazing at him from the craft's windows. All of the figures but one step away, but this one figure keeps looking right at Barney. Mr. Hill claimed the creature, or whatever it was telepathically telling him to stay where he was and keep observing.
The craft drops even lower, maybe 50 feet from the ground and less than a football field away from Barney. Barney runs back to the car. He's screaming at his wife in panic. They're going to capture us. At this point, the Hills report hearing a buzzing sound followed by beeps. The car vibrates, and they feel a tingling sensation in their bodies. And then... And then, the Hills hear those beeps and buzzing sounds again, but they realize they're about 35 miles south of where they thought they were. They drive up to a roadblock, stop the car, and see a fiery ball of light in the road. Both of their wristwatches have stopped working.
The Hills arrived home in Portsmouth around dawn. They claimed they were confused. Barney felt he needed to shower to remove any possible contamination. Betty put the dress and shoes she was wearing into her closet and noticed tears in the fabric, but she didn't remember tearing her dress. She also saw some kind of pink powder on it, and the trunk of their car had these concentric circles imprinted, but they weren't there before.
So they drew and wrote down what they remembered seeing, but they found their memories were fragmented. Now, on September 21st, they phoned Pease Air Force Base in Portsmouth to report what they had encountered. On September 22nd, Major Paul W. Henderson phoned back to ask for more details. In his official report, he determined the Hills had misidentified planet Jupiter.
Right. I can't tell you how many times the planet Jupiter has chased my car down a desolate road, torn my clothes while setting fire to the road. I'm curious, though, about their dog Delcy, who was in the car the whole time.
No one interviewed the dog.
In the coming days, Betty claimed to have this recurring dream where she and Barney encountered a roadblock. Their car was surrounded by men, and they were led up a ramp into a disc-shaped metallic craft. Once inside, she and Barney were separated into different rooms and examined. Betty remembers sitting down, seeing a bright light, and then there was a physical examination of her skin, hands, feet, and body. She wrote all of the details down and would later reveal it to people interested in UFOs, including U.S. Air Force Captain Ben H. Sweat. Sweat also had an interest in hypnosis, and he referred the Hills to Benjamin Simon in Boston, who conducted several hypnotic regressions with Betty and Barney. It's from those regressions that we get most of the details of their account.
This story really blew up in 1966 when author John G. Fuller wrote the book The Interrupted Journey that propelled this experience from a regional story to an international one that people still talk about today.
So there's a blast from our past.
And today there's an official state marker near Indian Head Resort in Lincoln, New Hampshire that marks the Hills UFO incident.
But the remains of this radar base here on East Mountain, Vermont, are still rusting away.
In 1962, North Concord Air Force Station changed its name to Lyndonville Air Force Station and then closed for good in 1963. So it was only in operation for about 8 years.
Once the United States and the Soviet Union started launching spy satellites, bases like these became obsolete. Also, it's worth noting that the Cuban Missile Crisis was October 16th to the 29th, 1962, just a year after this UFO incident. I'm sure things were pretty tense up here back then.
Today, the rusted ruins of this radar installation sit on private land on top of East Mountain. It's a Cold War-era ghost, rusted and dangerous. But this ghost of a base reminds us that with all the turmoil in the world today, it still feels like we're on the brink of destruction.
Yeah.
Just a couple of maniacs with their fingers on the launch button of a fleet of nuclear weapons, and our cities will look as post-apocalyptic as the remains of this old Air Force base.
Maybe our only hope is for some kind of intergalactic intervention from some advanced race of beings who fly here aboard ships to remind us that we're just dust floating on a rock, hurling through space.
Maybe to the aliens we're space dust, but you mean the world to us.
You do. And that brings us to After the Legend, where we take a deeper dive into this week's story and sometimes fly off course.
After the Legend is brought to you by our Patreon patrons. For just $3 per month, our patrons get early access to new episodes, plus bonus episodes and content that no one else gets to hear. Just $3. That's like buying me and Jeff a box of cookies at the grocery store.
Cookies.
We'd have to split it, though.
Oh.
Yeah. Doesn't sound like much, but if enough of you jump in to help, it goes a long way to helping us with all the costs it takes to bring you a new story each week. Head to patreon.com/New England Legends to sign up.
Okay, first order of business, a little mea culpa this week. In last week's episode, number 285, titled Westford's Grey Ghosts.
I remember it well.
Right. We said the Rodenbush Community Center was the site of the original Westford Academy, please forgive our mistake. The building was actually the second location of the Westford Academy.
I didn't want to say anything at the time.
Right. So the first is still standing and is the current Westford Museum building on Boston Road. Thank you to Bernadette Duralt, for one of our patrons, by the way, for pointing that out. Okay, so in the news this week, big old Chinese spy balloon.
Yeah.
Floating across the nation.
Well, the sad thing is, it came from a child's birthday party.
Right.
It was a big balloon.
Just
That's
got
all.
away.
It was just a regular balloon.
Just a simple mistake. Just got away from them, and oops.
Although every time you see balloons in the air like that, what's your first thought?
UFO.
Yeah.
Right. Weather balloon. No, I totally get it. But it was sort of timely, and it's funny because I'm like, wow, that's sort of like old tech. I mean,
well, that's the first thing I thought. Don't they have satellites
That's
up there?
what I said. I'm
satellites that take pictures of like somebody sunbathing in a backyard. Like you can zoom in that closely.
So here's a weird Kilimanjaro story. I climbed Kilimanjaro mountain in 2017, wrote a book about it, and I have a friend who works for NASA, and she said, "Oh, we've got these satellites that monitor glacial ice all across the globe. Takes a picture like multiple times a day of everything." And I'm like, "Oh, how far down on the detail can you get on that?" I said, "Because funny story, when I was near the top, I had to pee, so I went behind a rock and I did my thing." And I said, "So what's the level of detail on these satellites?" She's like, "It could read a newspaper headline from space."
Wow.
And I'm like, and that's the stuff that you can freely talk about.
Yeah.
Right. That's probably 20, 30-year-old satellites. Sure. Right. Not satellites that went up this morning. Right. Those can read those are reading my texts right now.
Right.
Like, through my phone that's off.
My phone is upside down and it's
oh,
reading
you're
it right
fine
now.
then. You'll be fine. No, but so my point, like when I saw the spy balloon, I was like, wait a minute. We have satellites that can read headlines from space. Why would you need like a lower atmosphere balloon?
Paranoia. They're just messing with us.
Maybe that's, I don't
Psychological
understand.
warfare. Yeah. Because that's all we talked about the last couple of weeks.
Right.
So why wouldn't they do that? Like, let's mess with the Americans a bit.
Let's just run the Goodyear blimp and just we see you, right? Like we got with
the text that goes across. We see you. We're watching.
We're watching. Yeah.
I found the whole thing to be ridiculous.
It's a little silly.
They're analyzing it as of today.
Right.
It remains.
And they're not going to tell us what it was. Be like, oh, it was a kid's party balloon. Sorry, they were right.
Or it could be America making us feel better. Like, look what the Chinese did, and we saved everybody.
We just took a Sidewinder missile to pop a balloon.
And who knows what was in that? What if it was filled with something that was dangerous to the people below?
And now we have, oh gosh, stop it. This is not a conspiracy
Put your
podcast.
mask on.
Darn it.
Oh, we should do one, though.
But I was thinking about it, too. I was like, okay, so this base, we've done how many stories about lighthouses?
Oh, many.
Many, right. And the description is always the same. Like, you have this really important job to do, but it's boring.
Yeah.
Turn the light on at night and in storms.
Yep.
And make sure the place is clean and running well. Because
enough to drive you mad.
Enough to make you mad. Now, 175 people all on this base, like, okay, well, on good weather, we'll play sports outside or whatever. Yeah. But someone has to take turns at that monitor all day, all night, 365, just watching for like incoming missiles. It must have been frightening, like especially like with the Cuban Missile Crisis. I can only imagine, like, okay, Ray, it's your shift. Sit down, and you put the headphones on and you stare at a screen.
And there were days, I'm sure, or hours that you assumed something was going to happen. Like, we are so close and on the brink that this will happen during my shift.
Like, what's that? Oh, it's a bird. You know, like,
I was just living as a kid back in the 80s.
Duck and Cover. What was that movie that we all watched?
It was The Day After.
The Day After. That's the one.
Yes, and we all assumed that this was going to happen any given day.
Yeah, it was awful.
Yeah.
Our parents used to have to do drills where they would hide under the desk for a nuke strike.
That's
You're
right.
like, oh, that's a terrible idea, because you'll live like 1/2 of a second longer.
That's it. Yeah.
You'd rather just put your arms out.
Back then, though, they knew how to make them. They were sturdy.
Just run outside and get vaporized instantly. It's a quicker
that's so
death.
weird you say that, because I did have a thought recently that I don't know why, but it was a tidal wave. There's a movie out, right?
Yeah.
In the in the preview, the tidal wave's coming. Everyone's running from the tidal wave.
Yeah.
And my thought was, I'm just going to run into it. Why am I running away from a tidal wave? It's going to get me for 100 miles. I can't run that fast.
Well, have none of you been to the beach? If you dive through the wave before it breaks,
That's
right?
Yeah,
we all know what to do.
Run right into it.
We're New Englanders. We go to the beach every summer.
But I would run right into the blast site.
Yeah. Like, we're going in.
I don't know if I want to survive.
Playlist for the end of the world?
Yes, that
you have 3 songs.
REM.
Like, which 3? You have 3 songs left. That's how much time you have. Highway to Hell. Is that the closer or the
that's
opener?
That's a sad one. It's been, I did it my way.
Oh, I
Frank
like
Sinatra.
that.
Yeah.
As the blast is coming,
Yes.
I did it. We hoped it right at the mic.
Yeah.
Way.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
it.
not bad.
What about you? Any?
Oh God,
songs you
yeah.
can think
I
of?
feel like REM, End of the World as we know it.
That's a fun one.
Out of,
here we
you're
go.
like, yeah, like of course it's predictable, but come on,
Yep.
you know, like sometimes you want to be predictable. My Way is a good one. I don't think I can top that.
Hallelujah would be a good one too.
Oh, very haunting.
Right?
But I want to go out on an up note.
Okay.
This is
I
the
hear you.
worst podcast we've ever done.
Nothing but a
This
good
is
time.
So
From Poison.
I want to rock and roll all night and party every day. Yeah.
Rock you like a hurricane.
Yeah. And then we're off. This is
Yeah,
really,
you need something. Well, no, this is good.
this is, I
Are you
hope,
making note of this?
I
Just in
hope-
case it happens?
folks in the comments, by all means, list your 3-song playlist for
love
the
to hear
nukes
those.
are coming. You got 15 minutes. What are you going to listen to? Yeah. So anyway, so this story, the reason we even know about it, the late great Stanton Friedman, he's the guy with the glasses, nuclear
yeah.
physicist that was on every UFO documentary ever.
He looked like an alien. Sort of.
You know, I've met him a couple
You're closer
times.
to them than I am.
I know.
so you don't want to say anything bad about him.
I did a paranormal conference and it was mainly a ghost one, but he was there and I was like so geeked out.
Oh,
was
I
like-
would be if
I'm
I ever met him.
Stanton Friedman. Like, oh my gosh. It's so, but there was like no line to meet him. I'm like, this guy is in every
Oh.
UFO documentary. Anyway, he's the one that wrote the book back, I think it was 2007. Yeah, with Kathleen Marden called Captured the Betty and Barney Hill UFO Experience. That's where he mentioned this sighting that was that took place on East Mountain and was just before, just a couple hours before the Betty and Barney Hill incident. So there's always more to the story. How cool
Yeah,
is that?
yeah, right.
Like, so.
That wasn't just one moment in time. There was a day before and a day after. So
And the day after, and we're back to post-apocalyptic nuclear. And we got to play a clip from episode 5.
Oh,
that was
sound like babies.
It was we were just young, crazy kids with a dream back
who
then.
knew we'd be where we are now?
Yeah.
That was 2017. That was a long
2017.
time
Yeah.
ago.
Here we
Probably
are.
fall
Yeah.
2017,
that's right.
I think.
That's right.
Wow. If you got a story you think we should check out, please don't assume we've heard it. Reach out to us anytime through our website. It takes a community to find and share these stories. Thanks for being a part of ours. Speaking of sharing, please take just a minute to post a review for us and share this episode on your social media. You are how we grow.
We'd like to thank our sponsor, New Audio Herbals. Thank you to our Patreon patrons. And our theme music is by John Judd.
Until next time, remember,
The bizarre is closer than you think.